Israel is a terrorist state. By the time you watch this, Israel would have killed over 1,000 children. 1,000 children erased from this earth. Where are the front pages? Where is the outrage? Where is the empathy? 1,000 children. They've done nothing wrong. Their only crime was to be born in a concentration camp controlled by an apartheid regime. 50 whole families have been removed from the Gazan civil registry. 50 whole bloodlines removed from the earth forever by a brutal power which is committing endless war crimes, targeting targeting residential towers, targeting mosques, targeting hospitals. Palestinians have lived with Israeli terror for 75 years. It didn't just start with the Hamas attacks. For decades, Palestinians in the West Bank have been used to being taken in the middle of the night in Israeli raids and put in prison without any due process. When I was in Palestine, I was working on a story about how the Israelis use their captive Palestinian population to test out their newfangled weaponry. Israel is one of the world leaders in weapons and surveillance technology, and a large part of that is because they have a captive Palestinian population to test out their weaponry on. They call it the lab. What kind of country uses an ethnically cleansed, imprisoned population to test out weaponry? Imagine if 2 million Jewish people, 1 million Jewish kids were held in a prison camp and were being bombed repeatedly by the Muslim country next door and having their water, fuel and electricity taken away. Things would look rather different, but they shouldn't, because we're all human beings at the end of the day. It's hard to think of what could happen in Gaza that would be worse. We're talking about a concentration camp, 2 million people packed into a small area, no water's going in, no fuel, no electricity. It's hell. And all the time having bombs raining down from them by the apartheid regime next door. And they don't know where to even put their kids. Palestinian parents were having to put their kids in 2 different locations just in case there was a bomb fell on one of those buildings, they'd only lose one of their kids. Think about making those kind of decisions as a parent. Orphan children who've walked barefoot to A&E, sitting in A&E, their parents have been wiped out. Who's going to look after them? Palestinian children are writing their own names on their palms now, so that if they're killed by the Israelis in the rain of bombs, people will know who they are. Nowhere is safe. Can you imagine being a parent in a place where you can't protect your children? Imagine being a parent and not being able to protect your child. And you've done nothing wrong. You aren't Hamas. You didn't kill anyone in Israel. You're an innocent civilian. You should be protected by humanity. But where are we? We failed. We're allowing this to happen. If you ever wondered how historic crimes of great barbarity ever happened, now's your chance to watch in real time. What's the major lesson of the Nazi Holocaust? That you can never dehumanize any target population. That's how the Nazis did it. They othered the Jewish people. They made them seen as not human. And when you see people as not human, that permits any kind of crime. And that's exactly what we're seeing in Gaza with the Israeli government.
The UN have been saying consistently over the last few days that there is a catastrophic crisis, a calamity emerging on the ground. And you are simply saying they're either exaggerating or they're wrong, are you?
Yes, I am.
What's the view on the humanitarian crisis in Gaza this morning?
There is no humanitarian crisis because...
There isn't?
There is no.
That can only be true if you don't see Palestinians as human beings. Every single settler colonial society has to dehumanize the people that they displace and the people they massacre to live with themselves. You cannot look in the mirror knowing you've stolen people's land and put them in cages if you don't think that they're inferior, if you don't think that they're not quite human. Otherwise, you're looking in the mirror and you're seeing a monster. I remember being in Tel Aviv on my way to Palestine one time and watching people sunbathing on the beach. And I was just thinking, how can you do that when you know 20 miles down the road, there's a prison camp of 2 million people who have been booted off their land, many of them refugees and the descendants of refugees, from an ethnic cleansing program which had created the state that you're now lying in. Gaza is a prison camp for refugees and their descendants. The West Bank is a prison for the Palestinians that live there. Yet any Jewish person, including myself, who has no connection to that land, can go back and live in Israel whenever they want. Yet none of those Palestinians, many of them who still have the keys to the homes that were taken from them in 1948, can never go back. But yet any person from America, Britain, Australia, wherever it is, who can prove that they're Jewish can go and live in that country. That's the fundamentally unjust principle on which Israel is born. Any country founded on the ethnic cleansing of its native inhabitants owes a duty to those natives. Not only has Israel done nothing for those refugees since 1948, it's spent this last 75 years taking more of their land, more of their water, more of their resources. There is no chance of a Palestinian state now. The Israelis killed it. The two-state solution is a joke. It always has been a joke because the Israelis have been building what they call facts on the ground. They've been taking land while giving lip service to peace negotiations. The Palestinians on the ground know this. The Israelis know this. And the Western governments, which purport to support the two-state solution, know this as well. This is being made in Washington. It's being made in London. It's being made in Paris. It's being made in Berlin. Think about a schoolyard bully. If a schoolyard bully beats up kids and is being told by the teachers, by the parents that that's the right thing to do and there's no problem with it, they'll carry on doing it. What needs to happen is we need to withdraw that support. We are the sponsors of the apartheid regime in Tel Aviv. We are the sponsors of the bombing of schools and hospitals. We are the sponsors of withdrawing electricity and water from 1 million children. The Israelis could not commit these crimes, these atrocities, without our support. It's a small country. Its population is the size of London. Its GDP is smaller than Sweden. It needs us. It needs us backing them to the hill. It needs the diplomatic support, the intelligence, the military support to be able to do what it's doing. So as responsible citizens, we should be doing everything we can to break the support that our governments give to Israel. The Palestinians in Gaza and in the West Bank will get shot for raising a finger of protest or dissent against the apartheid regime which oppresses them. We don't have that problem here. We have a freedom that we need to use to support our brothers and sisters in Palestine. If we're not using it, we're not being moral citizens. The Palestinians are an unpeople. They've been silenced completely. They have no voice. So we need to be their voice and be brave and take on the media lies we get fed, because this is a conflict about a colonizer and the colonized. And the colonizer is going into its final stage. What we're seeing is a genocide unfold in real term. There's no doubt about it. The Israeli government has basically stated their intention to wipe out Palestine and Gaza. The Israeli defense minister has called Palestinians human animals. Quote, "We will eliminate everything in Gaza." That's genocidal rhetoric, all backed by the West. This fits into a long history of colonial crimes against indigenous people. Going back to the Spanish colonialists wiping out the indigenous population of the Americas, and the British wiping out the indigenous people of North America, putting them on reservations and slinging them a few casinos. In 100 years, people will talk about what we're seeing in Gaza in the same way. We are living through a historic time. People are going to ask you in future generations what you did to stop the Israeli genocide in Gaza. You need to have an answer.